and chapter 2. And the 6th verse of that chapter to the 20th, then we're going to jump into chapter 3 for a couple of verses. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield for those whose way of life is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse, who have left the straight paths to walk in dark ways, who delight in doing wrong and rejoice in the perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Wisdom will save you also from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words, who has left the partner of her youth and ignored the covenant she made before God. Surely her house leads down to death, and her paths to the spirits of the dead. None who go to her return or attain the paths of life. Thus you will walk in the ways of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. And we're jumping to chapter 3 and verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. How do you find your way round? I'm guessing that apart from the places that you already know very well, like me, most of you use sat-nav these days. It's on our phones, is it? It's built, if you plug in your phone into the car, you can see it on that nice little screen that comes up. But some of you will remember that it wasn't always like this. Many of you might be old enough to remember when we all had a map book in the car, as well as owning several A to Z road atlases for different cities that we might frequent. I even have got one from Aberdeen. I think I've got another one for Edinburgh, and I think I've got one for Glasgow, sticking about somewhere. I don't know really why I hang on to them, is it in case one day all the satellites get shot down and I don't know. But before you set off, you had to study the map. You had to chart what seemed to be to you the best course through the places that you were going. And then you had to either memorize it or note it down for your hapless navigator, who can remember that, the role of whoever rashly decided to sit in the passenger seat. So, and then you had these kind of series of questions as you were driving, because invariably you would forget, what you wanted to do or where you needed to go. And you might be driving along the road, clutching on, and you're in a place that wasn't really familiar to you. Do we come off at the next junction? And your navigator, who maybe didn't have the map skills to keep up with your desires, wasn't quite sure, hadn't been paying enough attention. They might say yes, or they might say, well, I'm not sure. I don't know. Come on. How do we go off or not go off? No, well, consequently, roads were missed, wrong directions taken, and much unnecessary pressure was placed on marital relationships. Thank God for sat-nav, eh? It's been great. It's been great. It not only gives us the fastest and maybe the most direct route, but it can also kind of monitor the delays ahead and suggest alternative routes around them. But as with hill walking, and I know there's a few hill walkers around here, the most direct route is not always the fastest. The best route is not always the most direct route. In fact, it rarely is. Often it's better to follow the lines of the mountainside or to skirt around a stream or across a ravine rather than trying to get across it. And the same applies to roads. But, I think in terms of finding our way around, none of us want to turn the clock back to those paper books. Used to fall apart in your car anyway, and you'd maybe lose the page that you really needed to find at the time when you needed it. What about finding your way, though, through life? Is there a comparable kind of guide? How do you do that? Is it through guesswork, experience, maybe trial and error? You've done a few things, you had your fingers burnt, you're going to not do them again. Or do you seek advice? Do you give careful thought to things? Or do you simply just follow your instincts, trust to your gut, and go with it? Do what seems best. Well, isn't it any wonder that so many of us get lost or find ourselves in dead ends? We need help. We need direction finding. We need a guide that's going to show us the way. And finding the way, I think, requires four basic steps. One, we have to choose a destination. Where are you going? What are you aiming to get to? What do you want to achieve on this journey? Secondly, you need to work out where you are. Where am I just now? Most of us know that. You're right here in church this morning. But it's helpful sometimes when we're absolutely clueless about it to figure it out. You need to ask, where am I? What's going on? You have to look at a road sign. You have to find something that orientates yourself. But the third step is that orientation from where you are to where you want to go. It's actually working. Okay, so do I need to travel in that direction or that direction? Or perhaps go back this way? And then the fourth step is that you need to make the journey. You need to actually repeat steps 2 and 3 until you arrive at that place. So you need to keep working out where you are, orientate yourself towards the direction, and get a bit closer. And every time you get a little bit closer. I want to suggest to you guys today, because the book of Proverbs is a tricky one for us to grasp a hold of. I want to suggest that the book of Proverbs that we're going to be looking at this week and in some of the weeks following is a sat-nav for the soul. It's something that God has given us so that we can find our way, so we can know where we are, so we can choose a destination, so we can orientate ourselves in towards the place we want to get to, and so that we can make that journey. It's a route map with life, for life, with particularly the routes to avoid highlighted. There's a way forward, and there's things to miss out on. There's things that you really, really don't want to go, the places that you don't really want to go to. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be covering some of the themes that are covered by the book of Proverbs. And today we're looking at this central theme in the book, finding the right path or way in life. There are many, many references to this book through the book of Proverbs. I've noted just a few of them down here in my preparation. And as with so much that we find in the book of Proverbs, and this kind of makes it a tricky book for us, they seem to be quite disconnected from each other. I think if someone had written the book of Proverbs today, it would be much more ordered. I can't say better ordered, but it would be much more ordered. We take the things that had to do with finding your way, we put them all into one chapter. We take all the things that had to do with speech, we'd put them into another chapter. We take all the things that had to do with family, put them in another chapter. We take all the stuff that had to do with finances and wealth and money, and we'd put them in another chapter. We'd find all the things that had to do with desire, and we'd put them into another section, and so forth. But Proverbs is actually much, much more related to real life. And real life doesn't work like that, does it? It doesn't come as a chapter on finding your way, and a chapter on how to work the family, and a chapter on how to deal with your possessions. Life is happening all the time, and you're getting stuff left field, right in front of you, coming up from behind, and all this stuff is going on all the time. So Proverbs actually is much more related to the way that life actually works. You'll get a verse, a proverb that relates to finding your way. The very next one might be to what actually comes out of your mouth, or to how you should spend your possessions, or how you deal with desire, and what goes on in your life, and the issues of friendship, or how you relate to your boss, because actually that is how life works. You see, today you might struggle with your family. You might be tempted by unexpected desires. You might say the wrong thing, and tomorrow you might find your boss coming down on you. And you still need to find the right way to react, to respond, and to move on. There's a reason why Proverbs seems to be so randomly ordered, and it's because life is. And to work through the different things that it's saying, Proverbs clearly identifies two destinations, two ways to go, two paths that we can take. The first, absolutely consistently throughout the whole book, is the one to avoid. It is the way of the wicked. This is a path of death and a path to the grave. It's a dark way. It's a dark path which leads very definitely down into ever deeper darkness. And you know what walking in the dark means, don't you? You just don't know what you're going to put your foot on next. You don't know if the ground before you is going to be secure. You don't know if you're going to hit something in front of you. It's not a pleasant experience. And so we become ever more tentative about doing it. And so this is the way of great unknowns, of lurking fears and worries, of great anxieties. We're told that it can be thorny. We're told that it can be violent. Chapter 3 and verse 31, don't envy the violent or choose any of their ways. There are people on this way who are violent. There are people on this way who have evil intentions. There are people on this way who aren't the kind of folk you'd want to travel with. It's a crooked way. It's a devious and deceitful way. Wisdom, it says in chapter 2 and verse 12, will save you from the ways of wicked men. People who have left the straight paths, who walk in dark ways, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. This is the nature of the road, the nature of this way. All is not as it might first seem. So why would anyone have choose this path? Well, let me tell you, I don't think anyone in their right mind ever does. That's just the thing. No one aims to go on this road. No one aims to take this path. But when you take your own path, when you follow your own way, invariably, this is the road you end up on. You know, just as the saying says, all roads lead to Rome, all self-begun pathways and route maps converge onto this great highway of life. Or actually, as Proverbs puts it, the highway to the grave. You might follow what you think is best for you. You might follow the way of most comfort, most fulfillment, the greatest pleasure, the greatest financial reward, the most seemingly satisfying. At first, it seems to be an easy way, without too many obstacles. It seems to be the most direct route, the simplest path from A to B. It seems to be exactly the path that you should take, appearing to head where you want and need to go, and not taking too much thought to follow it. And that's a thought that comes up again and again, that this is a path for the aimless. This is a path for those who don't think too much about these things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you made the choice because you're bold, and people do, or because you are aimless. It doesn't matter. The consequence is the same. All these roads end up here on the way of the wicked, the path to death and to the grave. That reminds me of something Jesus said in Matthew in chapter 7 and verse 13 and 14. Wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Jesus knew all about this way that people don't intend to end up on, but do. It's a path, I think we've all got some experience of walking, but it's also a path that we want to avoid. And Proverbs, this sat-nav for the soul that is right in the center of our scriptures, this helps us to stay on the right path. The second path, the path of life, the way, says Proverbs, of the Lord. The paths of the righteous that go up rather than down, up to life and immortality. A path of justice, we're told. The right way, a just way, the fair way. No, we're not talking about the golf course there. It is definitely a path that we actually would want to take. It's a path that is, in the words of chapter 10 and verse 29, the way of the Lord is a refuge for the blameless. The highway of the upright avoids evil, chapter 16 and verse 17. The path of life, verse 24 of chapter 15, leads upward for the prudent. It is the right path. It is far, far narrower than the other way, but it is a straight road. As Jesus also warned, small is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life. Blink, and you might miss it. A moment's distraction, before you know, it's gone past. It's a road, as I say, that is a refuge. The way of the Lord is safe. The way of the Lord is certain. It will take us where we really need to go. But, according to Proverbs, keeping to this path takes careful thought. Chapter 4 and verse 26 says, "Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Don't turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." Again in chapter 14 and verse 8, the wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. And chapter 21 and verse 19, the wicked put up a bold front, but the upright give thought to their ways. At every step, we've got to guard against our selfish inclinations, our dodgy motives, because God sees what we can struggle to see even in ourselves. The God who weighs our motives, the God who weighs our hearts, the God who is trying to find out whether we have any substance to us or not. Will we pull through the often challenging circumstances of life? Will we manage to get through those lean times? Or do we lack substance and we can bear no weight? So, choose your preferred destination. I think it's quite clear where we would want to go. And then consider where you are now. Orient yourself towards where you need to be and ask, do we maybe need a course correction? How can we then take the right path and stick to it? Well, listen to that key verse in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. The first step that Proverbs points to is where we've just been, that we need to think hard, to stop walking along a path where it's dark already and every step leads us into greater darkness, where the future is very, very uncertain, where every step takes you further from where you need to be. Stop and think. And then the second step is just there in verse 5 of chapter 3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. The Lord who sees, the Lord who knows exactly where you are, the Lord who has been watching your ways. Listen to chapter 5 and verse 21. Your ways, this is a very salutary verse. Your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all your paths. Wow. God is available to help you direct your steps in life. If only you'll take the time to listen to him. He gives instructions. He's trying to direct us. Hold on, it says in chapter 4, verse 13, to instruction. Don't let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. These instructions are important. And the wise listen to advice. The way of fools, chapter 12, verse 15, seems right to them. But wise people listen to advice. And listening to advice means following it, doesn't it? And what does wholehearted trust look like then in you? I think it's being prepared to take the steps you can't see because you know the one who does see and can be confident of his love, of his goodness, of his great power. And this leads through to the next step, which is a really, really hard one for those of us who are committed to the triumph of the self, to actualization, to individualism. Submit to the Lord in all your ways. Submit to him. Stop listening to what you think is right. Stop going your own way. Stop pleasing yourself. Submit. Let God take charge of your life. Let God direct your way. Not some of it, not part of it, not the bits that you would like a bit of help with, but all of it. In all your ways, submit to him. Decide to do what God asks, to go where God directs. Having trusted and submitted to God's instruction, we must stay committed to letting God direct the way. Chapter 16. All a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. So commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. God will work things out. So make sure that God stays in charge. Keep following his instructions. It's so easy, isn't it, to take back control. We must learn to walk in wisdom. You know, Proverbs is a guide to finding our way in life, to finding God's way. But words can be hard to hold on to. Words can be hard to visualize. I've read the book of Proverbs many, many times, and I still find these Proverbs quite slippery and difficult to remember and hold on to and apply to my life. That's why, in order to help us see what this actually looks like, Jesus came as the wisdom of God, personifying, incarnating, living out what the wisdom of God looks like in a human life. Living out the book of Proverbs. His life is what the way of God looks like. His is how a life living on the path of the righteous actually functions. You know, we might find all these different angles in Proverbs quite confusing. How can we hope to balance it all and apply it correctly and find God's way for us? Well, Jesus helpfully cuts through this confusion when he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. Follow him and you'll find the way. Follow him and you'll stay on the way, at work, with friends, with family, alone, in challenging circumstances. Follow his lead and you'll be sure to stay on the way, his way. Look for a moment at just how wide that way of the wicked is, how much ground it covers, how easy it is to find yourself walking on it. It doesn't take any thought at all. Now look, how narrow is the path of life? It's just the width of Jesus. Seems quite unreasonable. It seems offensively exclusive. It's pointedly focused, and consequently, it's easily missed. Don't, whatever you do, miss this all-important turning in life. Pay attention. It takes determination to stick to the narrow path, so trust in Jesus. It takes determination to stay on this path, to submit to Jesus. It takes determination to reach your destination, so commit your way to the Lord and find life in all its fullness in him. John's going to come now and lead us to the close of our service as we consider our way as we look forward to lunch together. Thank you, John.